Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Once again, I'm Dr. Deborah Crump, Chairman of the West Metro Voter Empowerment Committee for the NAACP. Thank you for joining us in this evening for a conversation with the candidate. Our series, Know Before You Go. We're glad to have you. It doesn't matter how many people that are here. We know that you can, word of mouth is probably the best thing possible. So please pass the information on that you hear tonight. Be sure to join us on Monday night when we are having two of the candidates who are running for office. One will be, excuse me, one will be the state court judge for Douglas County, and the other will be the probate judge for Douglas County. Please note, in every form that we participate in and that we sponsor, we contact all of the candidates that are running for that office and we invite them to the forum. Some of them refuse to connect with us, or something comes up and they are unable to attend. This is the third time we have had conversations on sheriff, and the incumbent has declined each time. With that being said, our moderator for tonight is none other than the secretary for our West Metro NAACP, Mr. Todd Ireland. Take it away.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Candidate Fanning, thank you for joining us. And just kind of going against what we've done in the past, this is just going to be more of a conversation. We will ask questions, but just more or less to get to know you. As you know, you're the only candidate here online. So as far as the time, we still will have a timekeeper, roughly 2 minutes for you to respond to questions, but just don't go too long. I mean, but we want this to be more informal and just really get to know who you are, your platform, what you represent. So for the audience.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Madam President, you have something to say?
No, go ahead. You're probably about to say it now.
Okay. For the audience, we are welcoming questions from the audience that we want you to put in the chat. We're going to make every effort to ask them. We ask that you refrain from any personal type questions that are out of order, just something pertaining to the position. And we want to know once again that we have asked all those who qualify to run for Douglas County Sheriff to attend. So this is not any kind of preferential treatment for candidate Fanning. He just decided to bless us with his presence. So with that, I want candidate Fanning to introduce himself and just let us know a little bit more about you and why you're running for sheriff, and then we'll go into a few questions.
Before you start, Lieutenant Fanning, please allow me, Mr. Secretary, to say that candidate Colley did accept our invitation and had every intent on being here, but contacted me today to say that he had an emergency that would cause him to have to miss tonight. So I do want to say on the record that he accepted, he planned to be here, but an emergency prevented him from attending, according to what he shared with me this afternoon.
That emergency, another event. So just so you know.
Excuse me, Mr. Secretary or Madam President, I'm not sure that our standard statement regarding our nonpartisan position was provided.
I'm sorry, I forgot. Let me state it right now. West Metro is a nonpartisan organization. We do not endorse any candidate or political party. Please note that. Thank you.
All right. Well, with that said, candidate Fanning, could you introduce yourself before we get into the question portion?
Thank you for having me. For one, I believe this is maybe my second time being on here. My name is Police Commander Shadarian Fannin. I'm currently employed with the City of Atlanta Police Department. I've been with the police department for 15 years. I'm originally from Montgomery, Alabama, which is about 2.5, 3 hours south of 85 from here. I'm a father of three. Uh, I have a nonprofit called the Badge to Family Outreach that's geared to our law enforcement, public officials, or any other focal leader within a organization, governmental, locally, or federally, giving something other than their 8 hours into the community. I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. Um, Also, current units that I've been on, I was assigned to Special Enforcement Section in the Gang Task Force and also narcotics. Also, I was assigned to the COP, which is COPS unit for the Community Oriented Police Section. School detectives, where I work with the youth, mentored the youth, and we also did investigations within the APS school system. I also was assigned in the Criminal Investigation Division, where I was assigned to the auto theft unit. Shortly after that, auto crimes got really big, so they pulled me over to the auto theft task force, where I work with the outside jurisdictions of in the corridor of Atlanta. Um, Shortly after that, I got promoted to sergeant. Went to Zone 1, which is the Bankhead area. If people don't know where that is, that's like 285, Donley, Hollowell, the West End, Morehouse, if you want a school to relate to it, Clark, Atlanta, all the HBCUs for Atlanta. Shortly after that, I got promoted. I got transferred and went to the field investigation team, which is fit for Zone 1, where we did low-level plainclothes operations. I got promoted, went to Zone 5, became the Zone 5 Morning Watch Commander, and then was transferred over to Zone 6 and became the Zone 6 Morning Watch Commander, where I'm currently now dual assigned to Special Operations Section as the FFE Commander. And if you want to know what the FFE Commander stands for, Field Force Extrication Team. I don't know if y'all been keeping up with the Cop City stuff in Atlanta, but I'm the commander that sets up the operation to extricate the protesters when they seal themselves into these tubes called sleeping dragons.
Thank you for that information, Candidate Fanning. And now I'm going to move on to the questions. Just to let you know, I have a list of 10 questions. As I said before, more of a conversation just to get to know you. And then afterwards, there will be questions from the audience that our president, Joy Ponder Bates, will ask you. So first one, what do you consider the character qualities you possess which make you a good candidate for the sheriff of Douglas County?
I have the characteristics I have is empathy. I have a strong level of empathy, and I'll get into that in between all the questions. Um, Transitional leadership, where transitional leadership is understanding the culture that you work in. Transitional leadership is being not just follow directions, but more of innovative in implementing new ideas and new things. Also, integrity. This race has been very hard for me to, turn the other cheek, but my integrity keeps me in line with the mission, which is to win this race. Also, I possess patience and emotional intelligence. You have to have a strong level of patience and emotional intelligence to deal with certain elements that can transpire within a organization such as a police department or a sheriff's office.
Thank you for that. I know patience is a virtue, and that's something that I'm working on myself. So next question. What would those who report to you say about you and your leadership?
That I'm fair. I'm always highly motivated. Um, I feel like if you're going to inquire something about an officer or expectation of an officer, that he should be able to see it in you too. So if I ask you to run, using the metaphor, if I actually run 10 miles, I should be able to run 10 miles as well, so I can understand what difficulties and challenges that you will face running those 10 miles. They would say that Fannin is very kind. He's very considerate. they would say that he's very understanding. And also, they would probably say that he's very informative. He likes to educate. He likes to give us the breakdown of the things that make the organization possible, the mechanics of it, and dissect it so you can have empathy as well to understand why we have to do certain things and why things have to be held to a certain standard.
All right, thank you for that. You mentioned the 10-mile. Was that just an example, or are you out
Yeah, it
running
was a
10
metaphor.
miles every day?
No,
Okay.
no, that was a metaphor, but I do run, so I use it as my metaphor.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. How would your commanding officer describe you? And do you have his or her support in your bid for Sheriff Douglas County?
I actually have a lot of support from the mayor of Atlanta all the way down to the chief of police and a couple of deputy chiefs, and as well as my zone commanders, and also my sergeants that I oversee. All of them have been very accommodative, knowing that this has been a challenge between my work performance and the needs of the city, as well as my obligations to continue to run this race. So they have been all super supportive, and they're working with me. So hopefully we get to. I didn't want to take a leave of absence, so that can kind of show you that them, the efforts of them having some level of understanding for me to finish through to May 21st.
All right, thank you. The first few questions we talked about character, leadership style. Now, what would you say are your developmental opportunities?
When you say developmental opportunities, things that I would like to take upon, is that what you mean?
Yes, like say some of your weaknesses that you want to work on and better yourself, improve yourself.
Yeah, weaknesses that are something I could improve on is not getting discouraged when you get that first no, to keep going, keep trying. Some of the weaknesses is that sometimes I want to save everybody, and I have to realize that, you can save as many as you can. And sometimes just saving that one can save millions, as I'm learning. So you don't have to save everybody every time. Also, being more stern when it's time to um, make a decision that should not be optional. Sometimes things don't have a diversion for it, and sometimes you have to just be able to cut the finger to save the hand.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, once again, this is a two-part question. So, how would the citizens in the areas you patrol describe your character? And how do you know this is how they actually feel?
They describe my character as very community oriented. And the reason why I know how that's I feel because my nonprofit, a lot of the programs that I implement are in between Douglas County and also Atlanta. But how I know physically they feel that way because they call me back every week and every month, saying, "Fanny, we need this again." The kids loved it. They didn't respond this way with the last person that we had. Can you come back? They send letters of appreciation. A lot of the NPU organizations and the neighborhood HOAs send emails to say, hey, we saw more presence. It's been quiet. We've been seeing, the officers in the area and they stop by and talk. So I do get a lot of response for the things that they're asking for. And the responses are pretty positive.
You mentioned your nonprofit. What's the name of your nonprofit?
The Badge to Family Outreach.
You said the badge?
Like a police badge, the Badge to Family Outreach.
Oh, okay. All right. How do you hold yourself accountable when your decision ended in a favorable or unfavorable outcome?
So it's two versions. I got the spiritual side, and then I have my way of holding myself accountable. And the only way you can hold yourself accountable, and I'll go to the spiritual side first, is that you first have to be accountable to God and understand what He wants out of humanity, what He wants out of man, what He wants out of your life. And when you understand that portion of accountability, you will show that humility to man. When I say man, human, a human being. And with that being said, that what creates the empathy or the sympathy to say I'm sorry, or I made a mistake, or allow me to correct it. But also on the physical side, I hold myself accountable by knowing my weaknesses and then implementing things, self-implementing things that increases the repetition and being able to be more sharp in those areas. Training is probably has been the biggest outlet for me at such a young age, because it has given me the repetition and it has put me through a mental stamina where I force myself to learn certain things because I know it's only helping me and helping me grow and establishing the wisdom that I need to move further in leadership.
Okay, thank you for that. As a police lieutenant, have you had the responsibility of planning work schedules, overseeing departmental cases, conducting internal investigations, and responding to the media? Do you need me to repeat those again?
No, I do all that currently every day, almost every day. So,
okay.
For his internal affair investigations, we conduct those. They come to us first. If they are at a certain category, internal affairs conducts the investigation portion of it, and then it comes back to us to handle the disciplinary portion of it. And sometimes the category is so high where it just goes straight to the chief in internal affairs. I also, as a police commander, we have to have some. We have to work closely with personnel to do the time for their payroll. So all lieutenants and above are timekeepers. Our job is to make sure and ensure that whether it's overtime, whether it's special events, whether it's just regular hourly pay, that our guys are getting paid on time. And we have to input the time and do their schedules. We create, my job is to establish the schedule matrix, which is when new officers come in, again, what their off days are, and I blend it in with what the staffing would look like for the week, and then we organize the charts where it fits the off days, and how many officers are on the road. Also, pretty much with Atlanta, I know a lot of departments are different, but pretty much Atlanta, the lieutenants are the commanders that pretty much do all the administrative stuff for the watch, and then I'm dual assigned. And we have what's called fill-in. So we have what's a city night commander. So we rotate for the city as a night commander. And night commander oversees the city while all the chiefs and majors are off. And then if some critical incident happens, our job is to report to the chief directly or the deputy chief directly about any major incidents. And we are the incident commander as the night commander. So our job is to do the public relations as well as notify public relations.
All right. Thanks a lot for being thorough with that response. Now, we know that as a lieutenant, you have officers under your command, obviously. But
Sergeant,
have you ever commanded? I'm sorry?
Sergeants, officers, detectives.
Okay. So have you ever commanded a department the exact same size of the Douglas County Sheriff's Department?
Our Douglas County Sheriff's Office is actually the size of one zone. And we have, including the airport, is 7 zones, but we have a total of 6 zones in the city. The airport makes it 7. But I would average the department, and keep in mind I'm a zone command, the morning watch shift commander. I would measure Douglas County Sheriff as one zone in Atlanta.
Okay. How will you handle the learning curve if elected?
It goes back to training, best practice. You learning curves. You You have to get out on foot. You can't sit in an office. You're going to have to go to other departments. You're going to have to make some phone calls. You're going to have to sign up for some training. And you're going to have to get in your car and travel a little bit to understand what is best practice. Contact PERF, contact CALEA, and understand what their expectations is for that particular department and their credentials. But also talk with more veteran seasoned sheriffs and see what they're doing at their jails and see what they're doing at their courthouses and also on their field operation division side, and implement a lot of the policies and programs that need to be updated. So it goes back to training. Learning curves always revert back to training and seeing what best practice is.
All right, thank you very much. This is of my questions, but looking at the chat, there are a number of other questions. So if elected, will you be as committed to appearing before the citizens of Douglas County as you have been during this election?
This what separates the interests. I think the issue has been a lot of leaders have been applying for the top leadership roles, but they're already dissolved mentally of policing. And when you, like, if they retire from a certain position, then they get into a top leadership position, their mentality is already in retirement. I'm still 15 years in my career, so I'm going to be very engaged, very active, and very in tune. How you run your campaign is how you're going to run your office, and I'm a firm believer of that.
All right, thank you for that. Now we're going to go into the questions from our concerned citizens, kind of going in line with what you just said. If elected, what do you plan to accomplish in the first 30 days, first 60 days, first 90 days? So basically, once you get into office, what are your plans?
That's a good question. My plans coming in, 30 days is not a lot of time. It's about 4 weeks. What we typically are learning best practice as it pertains to the equity theory of transitional leadership and building cohesive relationships, you have to do what's called easy wins, things that you have in your power immediately to change. I mean, for Douglas County, it could be solely just the uniforms. I heard some of the deputies, they're not like really happy about their uniforms. Those are easy wins to build morale. I mean, looking at more incentives, starting a new case study for more advanced pay since the county is growing. Once the county grows, the budget the salary is solely based off the population of the county. So things that can get the organization revved up to keep moving forward and keeping retention. Retention will be always the biggest thing. So it's always easy wins is the answer. Figure out what you can do right away that you can sign off on and approve to make them happy. That's reasonable.
Thank you for that. So going in, once again, if you are elected, how are you prepared to switch from a police agency to the sheriff agency and having more powers and responsibilities as sheriff? We have seen with the Fulton County Jail when police agency trained employees have trouble running and maintaining a jail facility. So if you could respond to that, please.
It goes back to best practice. During transition, the unique thing about this race is that it's the primary race. So the winner takes all in primary versus making it to November. You need 50% plus one, and you run on polls. That gives me time from now all the way up to January 1st of 2025 to talk to my mentors who are in leadership at different jails, have them reference me, do my own independent investment in traveling and figuring out things on my own. But I will be using this transitional time to prepare myself, and also connecting with my commissioners in the county and my other colleagues that may work within the sheriff's office that will be willing to show me the right way or show me least the policies in the books of what I need to be looking at to gain a clear understanding of where I need to start.
Thank you for that. This next series of 3 questions are pertaining to immigrants. So what will you do to prevent staff from discriminating against immigrants or people they believe to be non-citizens?
That's a really good question. I actually been sitting down with the Spanish community and the Haitian community, and we had I met them over at the church off of Veterans Memorial over at the I cannot remember the name off the top of the head right now, but they had me speak for the Haitian community, and I had an interpreter there. And the biggest issues is that they have language barriers, and those language barriers, any mistake that lead them to being a victim or a suspect can get them deported. And in Douglas County, it has been known that a lot of these immigrants are being deployed back to Haiti due to not being able to find their passports or their visas and stuff like that because of theft, or something was misunderstood between the language barrier and they were arrested or charged for something of a misdemeanor. So I've been working closely with the attorneys trying to figure out, the Haitian immigration attorneys trying to figure out what could the sheriff's office be of service to do if we were to implement a liaison program for different cultures and different languages. So I'll be implementing a liaison program, and not only will that help with the interpretation to make correct and accurate reports, but it also will help us understand the culture of things, because that also plays a part in resistance or something we may feel is obstruction. Sometimes they may not know that that's a crime, and sometimes they may not understand that I'm going to jail right now because they don't understand full English. So things like that are going to help us put in play, and we'll be able to talk with the attorneys and have more of the meetings that we've had within this year to give them the law. When you're here, these are the laws. If you need advocating, this is the information officer that you deal with, and this is your resources. And connect with your attorney. So for y'all guys that's designated to y'all from the sponsored through the Haitian community, and then we can be able to be able to have a culture that is sustainable from other countries within our county.
Thank you very much. As I mentioned, this is a series of questions, so there are two more. I believe in data and making sure that it's available to all. So will you commit to regularly releasing data to the public regarding collaboration with ICE, including the amount of resources used for immigration enforcement related activities, the number of immigration status inquiries, and the number of times your jail has collaborated with ICE?
Absolutely. That's actually the most important where I'm working. That's another plan. I'm trying not to give all my initiatives out because it actually makes other candidates smarter to add into theirs. But to your answer, absolutely. I'm actually working on a crime analysis unit that will be geared to anything that when it comes to stats that the public or the commissioners or I mean even the NAACP would need, and they would be able to retrieve an open record copy of what are the statistics for things. So we would have our liaison will also be implemented with federal partners. So we'll be able to share data, and I do have the resources just based off of my 15 years of working dealing with ICE, Homeland Security, the gang unit, and Special Enforcement Section to be able to start implementing those.
All right, thank you for that. Last part, will you advise non-citizens of their rights before ICE seeks to take action against them and refusing to allow ICE to question people in your custody?
As a sheriff, your job is to protect anybody in your county that could be deemed, you held to an oath of office. So I feel like oath of office trumps anything that would deem a person being a victim, or you are obligated to intervene into any element where corruption or a use of force or something that is not legal to be done. And the only way for us to do that is to be able to understand the laws ourselves in our organization for the sheriff's office. But to answer your question, that'll be a yes. But we will ensure that we're in compliance fully with the federal and state and county ordinance and our case laws. So case laws may also protect our immigrants from being federally misused or abused or anything that may be unlawful.
Thank you for that. Now, you as well as everyone should know the NAACP consists of freedom fighters fighting for social equality.
Yes, sir. That's me.
So with that in mind, how will you approach issues of racial profiling and discrimination in law enforcement?
Quick and swift, because I was affected in Douglas County. I don't know if y'all saw Fox 5 News last night, but they aired me about being one of the candidates that was actually locked up in the Douglas County jail after they found out I was going to run for sheriff. And I was pulled over. He said I was speeding, and it went from speeding to, oh, you smell like alcohol, and I was arrested for DUI. And if I had not been educated on my criminal procedures, I would not have thought about having my blood taken that same night, which I did. And the GBI was able to get involved and analyze my blood that same night and prove that I had no alcohol in my system. And I was a victim of a illegal arrest and a pilot trick as well. So it'll be quick and swift and zero tolerated.
All right, thank you for that clarification. So since you mentioned jail, have you visited jail? And if so, what are the current conditions?
I was inside of the Douglas County Jail, and it has a lot of repairs that need to be done, and it has a lot of issues. They were actually trying to draw my blood in a cell, which is highly unethical, and it's against the phlebotomist rules to be in a contaminated area. So Douglas County has a lot of work to do with that jail, and I'll be revisiting the budget that they have to see if we can better reallocate money into the places that's needed.
All right. I don't want to make any promises, but this will be the last jail question. And that will be,
Can I just jump in and ask something while you're looking for that other question that sparked my interest from this conversation?
yes,
Mr. Secretary.
of course.
Candidate Fanning, what do you believe are causing the issues that you witnessed in the jail? Like you say, they have not followed the rules in terms of drawing blood, and the reason why it's important not to draw blood in a contaminated area. Why do you think that happened? Do you have any ideas about that?
Oh, it's a lot of things. It's the lack of a present sheriff revisiting and knowing what's going on. It's the lack of dictatorship. I mean, it is the increase of a dictatorship that's going on with the county and that sheriff's office, and also nepotism. A lot of the people that are being promoted and put in charge of these things are selected based off of being blood related or favors being owed from the previous administration.
And so when you say that, do you have a way of validating that?
I mean, you can look at the last names. You can look at the sheriff's assistant last name. You can look at the nephews. You can look at the cousins. I mean, they're all in high positions.
And you indicated that you have had opportunity to manage budgets in your current role. Is that true? Or would managing budgets be new for you?
No, I manage 2 budgets with the Field Force Education Team. So I'm also, when I said I was a dual assigned special operations section, our job, we have probably one of, outside of SWAT and maybe Apex, we have probably one of the most expensive equipment procurement orders. So we have to always know what the budget is for our that's going to be allotted to us in special operation, and then we have to be able to look at the bids and be able to manage what is reasonable to purchase, or is it better to just fix it. So we're always negotiating between fixing and buying when it comes to based off our budget when it comes to our procurements.
And what is your budget? What is the budget that you manage now, the amount?
SOS has probably $1 million budget right now. A little bit over $1 million budget. It's probably when you add SWAT equipment, it's probably about $2 million, to be honest with you. 250.
Mr. Secretary, I'll turn it back over to you if you found that question.
Actually, I found a few more, but I will ask those and then pass it back to you, Madam President, in about 7 minutes. So you mentioned, candidate Fanning, that you were arrested by the Sheriff Department, not State Patrol. Is that correct?
No, I was arrested. So State Patrol they do a detail. I'm not sure exactly where you live, but if you're ever on 20, Post 4 and Douglas County do a detail like every weekend, Friday through Sunday. I was actually pulled over by the state trooper during their detail, and the sheriff patrol car kept going. So that's all. So what that's called when in policing is called like, a pick off. Like pretty much, you take this one, I'll get the next one. And so it was pretty much the state trooper's turn. He pulls me over to the right lane. And honestly, I didn't even know if he was pulling me over because there was another car on the side of me. But I got on over and I said, well, if he gets behind me, I know it's me. And then as soon as I pull over, he gets out of the car and he goes, step out of the car for me, sir, which was like kind of confusing for me because I was like, I never known them to actually step out the car, right away. So I got out the car and went to go grab my ID. And we were on the middle of the highway, mile marker 44. And I said, hey, my name is, he said, I know who you are. Give me your ID. And I gave my ID. He stand in front of my car and went to went back in his car, got on the phone, did something on his computer. Then he came back out and he said, all right, Mr. Fan, check this out. So you were speeding. And typically when I catch people for speeding on this particular highway, I asked them to consent to a sobriety test. And I said, how's that practical? And I said, and sir, if I was speeding, I'll apologize. I'm trying to get home. I just got a phone call that my child is having an allergic reaction and she may need to go to the hospital. And I had 2 other kids at the house as well that may need to get out of bed, or one of us need to stay at home and one of us need to take my daughter to the hospital. And I was trying to explain that, but I was a little confused how we went from a speeding traffic infraction to a DUI.
So me being a non-law enforcement, when it comes to being pulled over by law enforcement, as well as many others, just kind of assume if you're in law enforcement, you basically show your badge or your ID and you kind of get a pass. So I guess my question is, have you ever spoken with any officers in the current sheriff's department about what's going on in the jails, what's going on in the county, what's the culture of the jails? Have you had that conversation?
Yes. And what was said, and I'll be fully transparent with you, is that the Black correction officers and deputies are leaving because of they feel like racial the promotion process, the unit process, and how they're treated differently is racially motivated, and the retention is not really with the white officers, really with the Black officers. So that's probably like the most. I've maybe talked to four employees, including 1 civilian, so 5. that they feel like that everything's racially motivated when it comes to decisions of the department. And then they said that the sheriff's office lacked a lot of empathy. It was a situation where one former deputy was working there. He had just started there, and his wife got severely sick. And he said the sheriff himself, Tim Pounds, had told him that, I understand what you're saying, but you just started, you don't have any leave. And he was asking for maybe donated sick time, which we have that program with Atlanta, about donated sick time if you don't have sick time. And he pretty much gave him a ultimatum: you come to work or you fired. So he resigned. So it was the lack of empathy that that particular person felt, knowing that his wife was severely sick and dying.
Earlier, I stated that I like data. You mentioned about releasing data and talking about data. When you make these, basically hearsay, you're talking to people that are telling you this. Is there any proof? Is there any data to justify what you're saying about lack of retention and things of that nature?
I mean, right now, that would be my job coming into the gate. But right now, if you just needed something to start with, you can look at the commercials that Tim Pounds and his nephew Tavares Pounds are doing, asking, their recruitment. That shows that they're needing more officers. But that's a national thing as well, that we're all short in all departments. But if you needed some physical upfront proof, I don't work for the sheriff's office currently, so I would have to revisit the allegations that are being said. But also, they admit that they have a retention problem also in their recruitment, information.
So
I know retention is a big. I'm sorry, Madam President.
No, go ahead.
This is going to be my last question, and I want to pass it over to you. So, since you mentioned retention, I know that is a big thing nationally. So, do you have any kind of plans to maintain deputies and fill these positions?
The only way you can maintain retention right now in 2024 is that you got to host more recruitment. The more you do it, the more people you're going to get. The less you do it, the longer the problem's going to stand. That's probably the most realistic answer. And then you got to do things to keep people there. Maybe broaden where they can work their off-duty jobs, which I plan on doing that. I plan on allowing them to stretch out a little bit more in the mile radius to make a little bit more money that will pay them more closer to the Atlanta metro area to work off-duty. Other departments do it. Why can't our sheriff's office?
Thank you very much for all that information, answering all the questions, Candidate Fanning. I actually have to depart, but I'm going to pass things over to our president, Joy Ponder Bates. But once again, I really appreciate your time, your candidness. Appreciate you showing up. And I hope that everyone learned a lot from the question and answer session. Madam President, if you could take over.
Yeah. Candidate Fanning, tell us why you chose law enforcement.
I chose law
career.
Yes, ma'am. So I come from a big law enforcement military family. My dad actually retired from the Montgomery Sheriff's Office. My uncle retired from the Tuscaloosa, Alabama Sheriff's Office. And, my sister was MP in the military, my older sister. So I come from a big law enforcement family. My stepbrother works for the Montgomery Police Department as a detective. And if they wasn't in directly policing, they were working somewhere in the DA's office or chief of staff or somewhere in that nature where they still had to deal with law enforcement issues. My mom was a big advocate for communities, and she ran a nonprofit called FACES, Family Advocate Community Educational Services. And that gave me the community platform that was instilled in me, even though I didn't like it as a child because I wanted to go outside and play with my friends and stuff. My mom kept us embedded into the community. So when I got older, I tried out the fire department. I loved it, but it didn't pay much. I was playing football around the same time I was in the fire department, and I actually got a tryout with the Falcons. And the Falcons had in the practice. I didn't make the cut. So I had to go figure out a career, and I wanted to be somewhere where I could make a difference, and I wanted to do something that that was physical. And I met a God rest his soul now, a sergeant named Sergeant Hutchins, and he was the one that recruited me for the Atlanta Police Department, and I've been there the last 15 years.
So with the law enforcement heavily embedded in you and your family, how do you feel about the mistrust that a lot of citizens have of the law enforcement? And what would you do to foster a better relationship between the citizens and the law enforcement? I know as the NAACP, oftentimes we get complaints about law enforcement in the jurisdictions that we serve. So what would you do to help better the relationship between the community and law enforcement?
Well, I'm on both sides. I'm on that citizen that lost some trust in law enforcement, and I'm on the law enforcement side that has to understand that I understand why now they don't trust law enforcement. And what you can do, I mean, it's owed to the public that we rebuild bridges and create new bridges. So you can't just rebuild what's broken, because it's just like a relationship. Even if somebody takes you back, they may not fully trust you. They may have gotten over the situation, but they may not fully trust you. And only way that you can rebuild trust after something is torn down is that you have to show a repetition of the same manner and behavior of trust, things that they trust, and you have to be able to reciprocate. You have to be able to give them the trust and compassion and love that they reciprocate from in order to trust you. So you can't give them what you want them to trust me now. We did this for you. Figure out what gains their trust and start working on that, and do it often, so that they know that they can trust you, and it's just not a scheme of things or an initiative to say, okay, they trust us, so we can relax now. You have to change the culture, and the only way to change the culture, you have to. And I'll tell you the meat of things, what the root cause of it. The root cause is that culture in police departments have overseated policy, and we have to get back to them looking at policies versus how we always done it. And the issue with law enforcement, even when they go to promotion tests, they can't. A lot of them don't pass a promotion test because they circle the answer that is we always did it that way, but it's not the policy. There's a reason you missed the answer. So it goes back to better training, better cultural awareness training, and then we have to get repetition and being good people in real life.
So what I hear you saying is that oftentimes police departments or law enforcement, because you're looking to be the sheriff, but you are currently in a police department. What I hear you saying, and I just want to make sure that I'm clear about that, is that there is a policy, but there is a practice. And those two things don't often match.
Correct.
And what I heard you say is that you would make sure that the practice and the policies align with one another. Is
That's
that correct?
That's correct. The good old boy system is still in play at some of these organizations, sheriff's offices and police offices, and they're not practicing the better practice of 21st century policing, where equity and trust is the factor.
Yeah, there was a big cry earlier about defunding the police, and that was kind of the language that was used. But when you talk to the people who use that language, most often they are talking of they understand that policing is important, but the policing should be fair across communities, and that there could be more emphasis on prevention. And what are your thoughts about that?
Well, that has to be broken into categories, because the budget of a police department or a sheriff's office is solely based on the population of the county or the city, if it's a police department. So you can't compare budgets unless you can only compare with the case study of the same population or near the same population, if that makes sense. But also, all training should be across the board when it pertains to more training about the equity theory of culture, understanding the culture, cultural awareness. And it needs to be more than just a prerequisite hours of just taking an online course on cultural awareness. Um, they have another Atlanta. We have options to take another class through the FBI called the Color of Law, and it talks about the police brutality, and it talks about the misuse of authority and things of such. Money's always considered in organizations for best practices of culture awareness, but I think the sheriff's office has in Douglas has a lot of leeway where they can control what training is their priority of choice for that particular year.
With it's considered best practice that law enforcement mirrors the community that it is charged to serve and protect. When we have looked at the demographics of the law enforcement here in Douglas County, that isn't really the standard. Do you believe that that should be the standard? And what would you do to help recruit more officers of color and so that the entire community feels invested?
Yes. The standard for Douglas County, and this came out of the sheriff's mouth, was Robert Peel was their motto. And Robert Peel was his father and him became multimillionaires back in the like the 1870s for owning slaves and running a cotton gin. And he came out with some equity theories that were good, but it was not geared to culture. It was geared to the civil unrest having amongst each other. So I've like a lot of that. I have even been told during this campaign time that Mr. Fanning, crime has gotten too high and drugs has gotten out of control, and all of the white people are moving out of the county, and all the black people are moving in. We need some of our people to move back into the county. What can you do to fix that? So, motto for this county is doesn't necessarily mirror best practice as you stated. But what we can do is automatic first door in. Those are the easy wins. Is revisit our cultural awareness policy and training and figure out where we at. You got to figure out where you're at first and how bad it is or how good it is, and then you start adding and start repairing with training. Training is going to always be that number one when it comes to rebuilding an organization to be cohesive with the relationship of the community.
Someone wants to know, in your summation, does Douglas County have a problem with gang activity? And if so, what could you do about it as sheriff?
I mean, I can do a lot about it to the special gang task force. I'm pretty much familiar with the gang statute. I'm familiar with the gang charges. I'm familiar with the diversion of gangs. I'm familiar with the advocacy of kids and young adults that want to get out of the gang. And I'm familiar with the ones that are blessed in the gang, meaning their parents probably were in the gang. They have no desire to be affiliated with the gang, but due to them being indoctrinated by birth into those gangs, for ways out and relocation of gangs out of their culture. So, what can I do? That question. What can I do? A lot. That's my area of expertise for intervention, prevention, and decreasing of.
So how do you feel about community policing and having monthly meetings with various communities to stay in tune with what the citizens are experiencing and how they view the sheriff's department?
That's the police commander. So our job is to go to weekly MPU community, HOA, whatever community event is going on. So, and then there's also one of my passions, the reason why I have a profit. So, said, I think that be a sheriff over a county that oversees several cities and areas, and not have a passion to be communally inclined or engaged with the community. You have to have a desire to do that in order to be a sheriff, because you're gonna have to check on them even when the people get out of jail. You still got to go check on them. You can't just let them say, "All right, we got, this is it. Don't end up back here." Go check on them. Make sure they got resources. Make sure make sure the hope is still instilled into that community. So you have to be physically out in that community. So that's my thought process of it. I mean, it's a second nature for me. I grew up in it, and I enjoy doing it. If I could get out of law enforcement and do it full time, I would.
Why can't you?
I got kids. But if I could find a job that would suffice the salary to provide for my kids, I would. But until then, I'll keep doing my free service.
All right. Someone says that when you talk about holding yourself accountable, there is some footage that has been released where you don't talk so favorably about accountability. What do you say about that?
If that's Ryan Sample, that's just a Republican that trolls. But I'll answer this question. It goes back to my statement that I said before. We're sinners. We're born into sin. Your job is to be accountable to God. And when you're accountable to God, He gives you the will and the humbleness and the humility to show that humility back to man. And when I say man, that's male and female or human. And when you show that, that gives the humility, that gives you the willpower to be apologetic, regretful, and remorseful. And it gives you the willpower to correct your mistakes. Being accountable directly to a man who has to hold himself accountable is illogical. But to do it amongst God and what God desires for man and humanity will create the humanity that you need and the humility that you need to fix any situation that you did wrong.
So you bring up the Republican Party, and so I want to kind of ask you, without regard to party, no matter what party you are a part of and whatever your beliefs are personally, what will you do to ensure that you are fair and honest and serving people, whether they are Democrats, Republicans, or independents?
So this is a public safety job. Once this race is over with, unfortunately, you have to be elected, which forces you to be in politics. There's no way that you can be in politics during a race. You can't, that you can get away from being in politics during the race. And you have to figure out which party best stands for that county, not entirely a Republican Party or not entirely a Democratic Party. You have to figure out what party is in that county that best mirrors the culture and best practices that you want in your county when it pertains to community engagement and humanity. But with that being said, when the election is over, your job, the taxpayers' money, is to is for public safety. So if they got a Trump flag up in their yard, somebody's breaking in their house, your job is to make the most appropriate action for a criminal and to appease the victim who pays their hard-earned cash every every year to ensure that a sheriff office is fully funded and operated. So when it comes to Republican, Democrat, or anything, it doesn't matter when it comes to your title and your position. Now, people try to mix that when they ask about a person's views. Your views has nothing to do with and if you bring your views into a position, then you have already lost the fight and being in your position. You get paid to do a job, and your job is to take care of the county. You take care of that county well.
And so how would you ensure that your own personal views, when they are in opposition to what is good for the county, or what is ethical, or what is legal, or what is policy, how do you keep your views from conflicting with or overshadowing what is right,
Well,
when
that's
when you disagree with them? Yeah.
That simple it has to be in you. You have to leave your views at home. I've been doing law enforcement 15 years, and I never bring my political views to work. So it's not a hard transition, and I feel like if you have to transition to get into a sheriff's office seat, then you would already drop the ball as a leader. That's supposed to be already instilled into you when you come and put your name in for a position of such. If not, you need to probably start off as a rookie officer and start learning what being a law enforcement and learning what serving and protecting is before you decide to put in for a role of such that oversees so many entities in the county.
So I've been trying to span back through the questions to make sure that I am addressing the questions that have been asked by the people who are in attendance tonight. And someone wants to know, how will you, if elected, maintain those sheriffs who are committed and devoted to Sheriff Tim Pounds?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about evaluating. It's all about evaluating yourself, and it's all about evaluating also each employee. And if the job is not to be loyal to me, the job is to be loyal to the civilians and the residents. And if you're not loyal to your residents and you're loyal to a sheriff, then that's an equity issue. But with that being said, you are obligated to build trust. You're brand new. They're used to their sheriff at that moment because that's where his current role is. And your job is to you owe them trust. You have to build trust with them as well. You can't just say, "Hey, I'm the sheriff," and you're either gonna do it now and that's the way it is, and you're gonna like me, and that's the way it is. You have to grow friendships and relationships, and family has to be a day-to-day basis. So to answer your question, each day I will work hard to build trust and build cohesive work groups and figure out who our focal leaders are that does have the influence to say, hey, he has our best interests. Our sheriff is gone, and we have a job to do. This is not a family affair. This is a career. And we need to, long as he has our best interests, we need to put our minds together and do our job and take care of our residents and civilians. So with that being said, my job to build that is to day by day do things to build their trust.
Thank you, Candidate Fanning. We appreciate you. We are going to give you an opportunity to give any final thoughts. If there were questions that we didn't ask, if there are things that you'd like to share with us, we are willing and wanting to hear them. So you have the last say for tonight's question and answer. So if you would wrap it up with whatever you'd like for us to know.
I just want to say I appreciate for being invited again to the forum or the conversation. It's something I can put in my share with my kids that, hey, Dad, was able to speak in a conversation and a forum with the NAACP. So that is a accomplishment within itself. I feel like I'm the best candidate because in this particular county, you need to be a leader here in the sheriff's office. This is one of the few places that you need to have a leader that has empathy. And the reason why I keep saying that is because this town didn't always used to be what it is today. And in order for it to not go backwards, you have to keep pushing progressive and innovative change into the sheriff's office. And right now, the sheriff office is outdated in a lot of best practice. Not a few, but a lot. And it's important that it's a disservice to the community, and it's a disservice to the guys that really want to wear that uniform and really want better training, really want more training, really want to be in a cohesive work group where they wake up every morning happy to go to their jobs. It's a disservice to them. So you have to have a leader that possesses both sympathy and empathy. And you have to have a leader that does not say, my jail, my this, my that. You have to have a leader that's going to take his class A off and get into the community as what he expects from his deputies. So choose me as your sheriff, and I won't let you down. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Candidate Fanning. Madam Chair Crump, would you like to give some final remarks before I close us out?
This has been a very interesting conversation tonight. I am so happy that we had the opportunity to share this time with you, sir. Thank you for coming. And please do tell your children that you came back to the NAACP.
Oh, well.
We are definitely about informing and educating our community. If in the event that you are chosen for this particular position, we expect to hold you accountable. We will be having you back if you are elected, and we would like to have you to put into your schedule perhaps monthly meetings with different communities where you can have community policing, where the community can ask you questions and they can tell you about what's going on in their community. That's what we would like to see. We bring everybody that is running for offices to our forum, but it's not enough for us to elect people. It is for us to hold them accountable. And with that, we thank you so much for coming. We wish you well. Monday night, we will have our last forum, next to the last forum, in Know Before You Go. The election is on May the 21st. And so we want to bring on the Douglas County State Court Judge and Probate Court Judge. Again, we have invited all candidates who have qualified for these offices and given them an opportunity. But in some instances, some people have declined coming. With that, we bid you adieu. Thank you so very much for all the people who came, and we hope that you can take this information back to the community. This recording will be on our Facebook page. It is a YouTube video, and if you choose to share it, it will be available probably by the weekend. Thank you so much, Madam. I yield back to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair Crump. I just want to really applaud you for your hard work and the efforts that you have made to ensure that the citizens of Douglas County are informed about who their candidates are. You have done a phenomenal job this election season. I am going to ensure that you get some rest between May and November so that we can be back at it again. This concludes our question and session answer. I thank you again, Candidate Fanning, for thinking it not robbery to join us here tonight and listening to the concerns and answering the questions from the citizens and from the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. It is always our goal to edify the beloved community so that when you cast your vote, you cast a ballot that is informed. Thank you all for joining us this evening to hear from the candidate and for asking the questions that are near and dear to you. Please know that we do this because of you. We hope that you have gained a better understanding of the people who seek to represent you and that you're closer to a decision that aligns with your best interest. And I'll say this, Dr. Crump said it her way, but I'm going to say it this way. The NAACP has no permanent friends. We have no permanent enemies. We only have permanent interests. and that is the equity and fairness and truth for people of color, for Black folk. And we're not ashamed to say it, and we are going to advocate it for it until the day we die. And so we hope that you have learned something, that you are prepared to go to the polls. And I would ask that you not wait until the last day to vote, but vote early, because there are forces who wish to suppress votes. And should that happen, you need an opportunity to resolve issues. And that usually cannot be done on the day of. So the election day is the deadline. We have early voting, take advantage of it. And with that, I bid you good night and pray that you take good care of yourselves.
But we'll be back in September
Okay.
before the election. Okay.
Yes,
On a-
ma'am. Madam Assistant Secretary, could you stop the recording?